Welcome to the Building Web3 Podcast. Today we dive into the $5.3 billion Bitcoin mining market with Sazmining. Join us as we explore the cutting-edge world of crypto mining, energy efficiency, and the future of Bitcoin itself. Remember, nothing stated here is financial advice. Welcome to the Building Web3 Podcast. Today I'm here with my good friend, Ken. He is the CEO and co-founder of Sazmining. And before we get too deep into Sazmining, let's talk a little bit about what you were doing before you entered Web3 and what was your come to crypto moment?
Oh, geez, that is it's a bit of a journey. I'll make it as quick as possible. So I worked for about a decade in rooftop solar and kind of top of my game there. I had a team of about 100. We publicly traded, competing against Elon Musk's cousins, and the board in their wisdom at that point decided that they wanted to bring in a new CEO. I was on the executive team, but not CEO, and I just saw where he was going to take things and decided this is a good time to fulfill my other life dream, which is world travel. And doing that during that 2-year sabbatical time, 2014 to 16, I fell in love with both the Portuguese woman and Bitcoin. And so life restarted for me in 2016, trying my hand at Bitcoin entrepreneurship and also start a life for myself in Portugal. So one thing led to another, and eventually realized that my solar background and energy knowledge dovetailed very well with Bitcoin mining. And so I found an opportunity with the founder of Sazmining to give a hand and raise some capital and pivoted the business to what we're doing now.
Absolutely. I got to say that's one of the greatest things about working in crypto, aside from the bleeding edge technology, is the freedom to kind of live where you want. I feel like it's one of the most remote friendly industries that I know of personally.
Yeah, I would fully agree with you. And I mean, as evidence of that is just my personal setup. We were talking a little bit before we started recording here about where I'm located, but, in the Peruvian Amazon, running my life off of Starlink. And I don't know if even a couple of years ago I could have done that, right? The technology today is just wild to enable us to really work wherever we, want to put ourselves.
Yeah, and I hadn't even thought to ask you, like, how are you getting internet in the Amazon? But yes, Starlink, it seems like, has opened up a breadth of rural options, I would say.
Yeah, well, I mean, the city that I live in is 200,000, so it's not like I'm in the middle of nowhere. And there's flights, every few hours to the capital city, Lima. But yeah, I mean, you just wind up having a dependency on the local network. If you're not using Starlink, and I realize it was better to be independent, have my own direct connection.
Absolutely. So we obviously love traveling, but we also love Bitcoin. So let's talk a little bit about Sazmining and what's the overall mission of Sazmining.
Yeah, it's basically to open access to the mining experience to the average person, and doing it in a way that is clean energy driven. So what I mean by that is there's tons of capital. In fact, we estimate last year that at least $4.5 billion flowed into the mining space. And that capital is all chasing one thing, in my opinion, which is lower cost Bitcoin. That is the name of the game when you're mining Bitcoin. And we realized that there was a service-based opportunity here at Sazmining to create a mining as a service product where we can give that experience to others, allow them to get Bitcoin at a discount, and to put some numbers on that. Currently, cost to mine a Bitcoin with us is about 43,000, and I believe the price today on the exchanges is 65. So we give people that type of access to a completely unique and different acquisition strategy. And to date, we haven't had much of a marketing budget, really, and people are finding us from all over the world wanting to, acquire Bitcoin at a discount.
And talk us a little bit through how this works. So let's say, Jax, I'm a new user. I download, the Sazmining app. It's an app, correct?
A web app. We're raising some seed capital at the moment to go out there and build the mobile app, but no, web app. And so, yeah, just to pick up where you left off, though, it's pretty simple. Like, we offer 2 pieces of hardware, 2 different mining rigs. So just like a typical e-commerce experience, you come on and choose the mining rig of your choice. One is more efficient from a Bitcoin mining standpoint. One is a little bit better ROI from a fiat standpoint. You purchase your mining rig, typical payment rails. Within about a month, we have that mining rig procured from China, delivered to our data center, which is in Paraguay, running off of hydropower, and you're deployed and starting to stack sats for yourself to your wallet. And once you set up a service plan to pay for your electricity. And then how we make money, because we don't make money selling mining rigs or electricity, we just pass through those costs to our clients. How we make money is taking 15% of the Bitcoin that's mined. So when that Bitcoin is mined, it's paid out periodically from what's called a mining pool. And we simply instruct that mining pool to split the transaction so that 15% goes to our wallet and the 85% majority goes to our client's wallet. And so that's our margin, transparently and also aligned with our clients. So we care about the exact same things our clients do, which is, high uptime, making sure that there's quick turns if there's repairs needed to your hardware, that sort of thing.
Absolutely. And let's talk a little bit about, mining as it stands. So obviously there's a high powered computer that needs to be purchased, the miner, and then it needs to be installed into some kind of data center near some kind of, renewable energy or some kind of heavy energy source. And they're all competing to solve really complex hashes to confirm blocks. And then they sometimes get a reward, and then that reward is split. Is it relatively random? So are all pretty much mining rigs kind of created equal in a certain respect? I know you said there were two options.
I would say all hashes are created equal. And so when we talk about what your mining rig does, it's first of all, a little bit different than a computer. It's not a GPU, right? It's a application specific integrated circuit, or ASIC is what it's called. So it's a piece of hardware that's designed to optimize a software algorithm. And what it's doing is, in essence, trying to solve the next block and be the first to propagate that to the network. And if your mining rig is able to do that, then you're rewarded at this point with 3.125 Bitcoin, which, quick math puts that close to $200,000. So that's the reward. Now, statistically, having one mining rig makes it very low probability that you're going to solve a block. And so what you do is you pool your hash rate in what's called a mining pool with a whole bunch of other mining rigs in order to smooth out the statistical variability of finding blocks. And then you're rewarded for the percentage of computer hash rate that you deliver to the mining pool for the blocks that are found by that mining pool. So it's a way to sort of, kind of think. I don't know if you recall this, but there was a way for a while there where people would pool up in an office, like to purchase lottery tickets together, right? And so if you get the lottery with that pooling, then depending on the number of lottery tickets that you purchase, that would be your payout, right, in that pool. Similar idea with mining.
Absolutely. So, and I think that was such a great explanation. So we go on the site, we order our rig, it gets installed. We're now part of we'll say like the hash rate pool, where we've pooled all our resources. So if our particular team wins the Bitcoin reward, it's then divvied up, and then the percentage we get is based on the hash, or like the computational power we're contributing to the pool.
You got it, man.
There you go.
How it works. Now, the mining pool is not ours. We're connected in with a third-party mining pool, and that kind of gives us an arm's length relationship. It also means that when Bitcoin is paid out, it's done in a non-custodial fashion, so we never have any control over the private keys of your Bitcoin. It's just distributed directly to your wallet.
There you go. And talk about how that works. So everyone kind of submits their wallet. There is a payout, and then it goes to an initial wallet and then it's divvied up, or it's automatically like splintered and fragmented from the reward.
Yeah. So what happens is, at the mining pool level, like, you've got an account there, and of course you don't want it paid out like as it comes in, because the transaction fees would chew through the rewards. So what happens is, generally speaking, the default is about 400,000 sats that a client accumulates in their pool account before it's paid out. And then when it's paid out, it's split at that payout. So the 15% goes to us and 85% to our client. So when you, from a protocol perspective, when a mining reward is found, it is paid out to a specific wallet address. And in this case, Luxor is the name of the mining pool. It goes to their account, and then they distribute it. So the rewards you receive are one hop from the protocol, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And let's talk a little bit about, Bitcoin in general. So we just had the halving event earlier this year, and how does that kind of affect the mining space that you guys are in? Is it like devastating? You're like, oh wow, like the rewards just got cut in half? Is it like, oh hey, well there's always price appreciation? Like what's the effect post halving on this type of business?
Yeah, so generally speaking, the effect is extremely healthy for the network, because I think in this case we had about a 10 to 15% pullback in hash rate, and that means that people that were mining inefficiently, as compared to the rest of the network, they couldn't mine for less than their cost of electricity any longer, and so you see them start to unplug their mining rigs, and that makes the entire network more efficient because the mining rigs that are left are running at a higher efficiency, and so it makes it more energy efficient, the entire network. Now, that does hurt for a lot of folks. And what we tend to think of is it's actually still the best time to get started, because historically speaking, even though it is the worst ROI right now, the months before the bull market really takes off, historically speaking, if you didn't have your mining rig plugged in during this time frame, you could not get it plugged in when the bull market got started, because energy becomes scarce, rack space becomes scarce, and the timelines to deployment just extend. And so although it's a bit painful right now from a profitability standpoint, it's also the best time counterintuitively to get started.
And what's the cost for getting started? If someone's like, man, like I don't know if I have X amount of dollars lying around, like how much does one need to invest to get, one of these rigs?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we don't fractionalize ownership, right? Like you're buying and you own a piece of hardware, the serial number all the way through. So we have possession of your equipment, right? Like that's how it's working. And the minimum cost to get started is with a piece of hardware called the S19K Pro, and that's about a $2,500 investment.
Oh, quite reasonable. I was expecting like 25,000. 30,000. Hey, this is good to know.
Clients that are doing that and building out fleets, right? Yeah, because these are like Lego blocks, right? The more you have plugged in, like they are additive in a very linear fashion. But no, we've got on the best ROI from a fiat standpoint is that's 19K Pro, which is about 2,500, and then we've got the highest efficiency machine on the market right now, which is the S21 Pro, and that's closer to $6,500 for that. So quite a spread, but you generally blend with that machine.
Got it. And what kind of challenges you guys faced, building this project? It seems like any kind of halving situation, there might be a lower ROI. It seems like at times there may be like difficulties getting the equipment. Maybe if there's certain transit chips shortages, like what kind of challenges you guys faced and how'd you overcome them?
I would say, and this is going to sound a bit odd, the hardware side of things has been less challenging than doing a 0-to-1 business model, which is really, we're the first to sort of step out and say, look, this is a high reputation business. We have possession of our client's property, and we need to build a world-class customer experience to support that sort of reputational relationship between ourselves and the client. And so building that software, because nobody had ever done it, and trying to figure out how that interplay of expectation setting for clients, along with how you deal with energy billing and payment rails in the Operation Choke Point 2.0 environment, as well as displaying that information in an easily digestible fashion, has been non-trivial, really. And now that's not to say that there aren't operational issues. So for instance, when we first opened up our data center in Paraguay, we had a whale of a time getting through customs. when we were sea shipping. So we realized if we go through air shipment, the customs agents, there's a different segment, and so we could deploy the mining rigs more quickly, and although slightly more expensive, but we could also circumvent the issues we're experiencing in the customs line, and so that gave a better customer experience overall. So there are operational issues, but I would say that our focus has been more on the customer side and how to create a streamlined experience there and overcome the challenges there, because it's not easy to set expectations and deliver on them with so many moving pieces.
Yeah, and I know the challenges of customs here in Colombia. Sometimes you'll order something from Amazon, it'll get turned away. You're like, go figure. Who would have thunk? But very common, honestly. You're just like, well, I needed that thing, but I guess I can live without it.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about why you guys chose Paraguay. Like many people, like we've talked with Hive, I believe they're based some places in the U.S. and then in Sweden near some hydroelectric. Why'd you guys pick Paraguay, and like what advantages does that bring?
Yeah, so Paraguay is very unique. It's got a unique dynamic that is worth touching on. So first of all, when we look for data centers to deploy our clients' mining rigs, there's about three circles in the Venn diagram for us that need to intersect. One is a quality operator on the ground that we can rely on. Two is cost of electricity, and three is clean electricity. And so that generally lines up with hydro for us for the two data centers we're managing. And Paraguay is unique in that it's got about 15 gigawatts of electricity. There's a dam that goes across the border of Brazil and Paraguay, a river, and it generates about 15 gigawatts of electricity. And what's unique is Brazil has no problem using their 7.5 gigawatts of electricity, but Paraguay has big problems using theirs. And so what happens to the excess hydroelectricity that's generated is it's historically been sold at a loss to Brazil. So here comes the Bitcoin miners show up and realize, oh my gosh, the entire grid is hydropowered. So anywhere we plug in, it's hydro. And by the way, that electricity being sold for loss means that we can actually repatriate the electricity that's being sold to Brazil, give the GDP a boost instead of it being a drag. And ultimately, that leads to the political class embracing it because of the jobs and the votes that come along with it. So to give you guys an idea, there's something in the neighborhood about 3 staff per megawatt that you need on the ground to run a data center for mining. And that is the sort of thing that really perks up politicians' interest.
Yeah, I think one thing that people may not know, unless they've listened to our Hive episode, is people will often think, oh, okay, there's this excess electricity, like we'll just put it in batteries, right? But battery storage is actually incredibly expensive. So either the excess electricity is, yes, sold at a loss, so undervalued, or it's completely wasted.
Agreed. And I think there's actually something more fundamental, and I learned this in my rooftop solar career, about people's understanding of electricity in general. So in general, we have a really hard time dealing with things we can't see, touch, and feel, right? And electricity is one of those. And electricity, the way I think of it, is as a living force, right? I mean, it animates our bodies, right, through our nerves. But it doesn't do well when it's not flowing. And in the same way that water doesn't do well when it's not flowing, it becomes stagnant and mosquito ridden and all those horrible things, right? Electricity is the same. We've just really not figured out a way to conserve or store it. And that kind of goes against our intuition of most everything else, where we want to save, store, and use resources wisely. With electricity, it's simply a use it or lose it situation. And that goes against most of our thinking, right? And so that's why when it comes to like climate change issues and energy FUD, I think it's resonated so much is because there's just a deep misunderstanding of how electricity fundamentally works.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was the biggest thing that surprised me when I looked into, Bitcoin mining, because you hear all these things like, oh, it's so bad for the environment. You're like, well, not really. It's all using like hydroelectric, and it kind of evens out the grid. And then when we talked with Hive, they even said they had technologies that if it was like a peak electricity use area where they could essentially like slowly wind down some of their mining rigs and then bring them back up when the like peak demand was done.
Yeah, that's in fact one of the reasons why we have such a low electricity price is because we participate in the curtailment program. So it's not that they send us a signal, it's just that we've agreed to a very low rate in exchange for it being called upon to just shut down. So there's not like a demand response program in Texas, for instance, but it gives us access to low priced electricity. And I think just to dig into it a little bit further, what many people miss is just the alignment of incentives, right? The biggest expense that you have as a miner is electricity, right? And so if you want cheap electricity, where is it located, or what form does it take? And it's quite simple. The electricity that's either being produced at the wrong time at the wrong place is the electricity that's going to be the cheapest, right? Because it's wasted and discarded. Well, what is that electricity? Generally speaking, it's hydro, wind, and solar, right? And the reason why is because where it's either located or when it's generated is not always in alignment with our human activities and how want to use the electricity. And so that's where Bitcoin miners are coming in and basically making the whole thing the grid more efficient. And to give some numbers to that, the Bitcoin mining industry is actually the most the most carbon-free energy industry, not even energy industry, just the most carbon-free industry on the planet right now at almost 57%. And that sort of surprises a lot of people when they hear that. Even though it's using a lot of electricity, it's electricity that's going to waste in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it was one of the things that when I dug into it, I was the most surprised about, and I was like, man, this is just such a bad narrative that's taken hold and really needs to be reversed. So let's talk a little bit about building projects in the Bitcoin space, because one of my goals is to try to get more people like founding Web3 companies, building on Bitcoin, building on Ethereum, all of these technologies. Like, what are some of the advice you would give to aspiring founders looking to enter the crypto space?
Oh gosh, I don't know if I'm the best to give advice on that, Jax. I think just general entrepreneurial advice applies, and the reason why I say that is because if you look at the crypto space in general, Bitcoin has a monopoly when it comes to proof of work, right? It's like 95. Well, I think last I looked was more than 90% of the market cap dominance for proof of work tokens. And that just means that whole element of using electricity to convert into Bitcoin or another token is dominated by Bitcoin. And so that dynamic is unique to Bitcoin. And so what I do is completely unique at the entire crypto ecosystem. So I think the knowledge set that I have wouldn't necessarily apply generally past like the entrepreneurial lessons I've learned along the way, grit, determination, not giving up no matter how many times you get punched in the face or told this is a wrong or bad idea. Just those things I think are true of whatever entrepreneurial journey you're on.
Yeah, I think the never giving up really is so important. And each entrepreneurship, every company you start, I would say the first company you start is always the hardest because you don't know how to do landing pages, you don't understand funnels, sales, anything really. And then the second business, it's a lot easier because you can take to get all the knowledge and all the past failures you brought from the previous experience into the new venture. So go out and start a company, fail if you must, but just don't give up the general journey, I would say to everyone in the audience. Let's talk a little bit about, I'll call it the Bitcoin revolution. So when I was getting into Bitcoin around 2012, it was something you bought drugs with or fake IDs with online. And then it kind of evolved. And now we're even seeing people building significant applications on Bitcoin. We're seeing layer 2s, runes, BRC20s. And that really all seemed to pop up within the last year and a half. What are you guys kind of seeing? Is that having a big effect, like things like ordinals, things like runes on your guys? Or is it something that's relatively minor in the grand scheme of Bitcoin?
I think it's sort of a hold your breath and see. from my little corner of the ecosystem here. And the reason I say that is because there's been certain moments where the activity from ordinals and runes have driven a lot of transactions, and that's led to high transaction fees, which as a miner I love, right? It's something that helps us with our bottom line and profitability. But to date, most of that activity has been easy come, easy go, let's say. It hasn't been real consistent. And so it remains to be seen if this technology really gets off the ground, it winds up contributing in a meaningful way in the long term towards block space, which, you've got the scarcity of 21 million with Bitcoin, but the fee market of competing for transaction space in a given block, I think that's going to develop a lot in the coming years. And yes, that'll directly impact us. And if you look at the theoretical limit of transactions to Bitcoin, there's an argument that we've gone through the bootstrapping phase of the Bitcoin network, and specifically this halving, we're going to see block space fully maximized and transaction fees start to go up equivalently. Because if you look at compare the dollar system to the Bitcoin network, like what we do on the Bitcoin network is the equivalent of Fedwire from settling, between banks trade. And it seems to make sense that over time that block space is going to get very scarce and in high demand, and transaction fees will go up equivalently. So I know I kind of went off on a segue on that one, but
no, that's great.
Fees are fascinating.
So let's talk a little bit about, obviously your guys' future is staked to the success of Bitcoin. I would say my future as well. And what about company or countries adopting Bitcoin? Like I talked with a few people when Bitcoin was adopted by El Salvador, and they said it was relatively small because it's a tiny country. Do we think that Bitcoin will be a means of payment in the future? Like what is the future you see for Bitcoin?
Oh boy, I think it's. Was it Peter Thiel that said software is eating everything?
It's either Peter Thiel or was Mark Andreessen.
Yeah, I can't remember which one, but the quote that I'm talking about. But the way I look at it is ultimately Bitcoin is eating the banking sector, and it's just it seems inevitable to me that is going to succeed, and it has to be fought for, right? It's not like we can sit around and just observe it from the sidelines. But the reason I say that is because Satoshi Nakamoto's true genius is that he harnessed human self-interest. Like, it doesn't matter what let's put it this way, any actor that interacts with the Bitcoin ecosystem, if they work to maximize their self-interest, it grows the debt. And that's a very unique thing. And I would say arguably the most powerful force on the planet is human self-interest. So to harness that, to me, suggests a bit of inevitability towards the Bitcoin's dominance. And I think that the countries and the companies and the individuals that adopt Bitcoin early and ahead of the masses are going to benefit the most. And I think that's what we see with El Salvador, right? Now, whatever you think of Nayib Bukele, like, he is the most popular president in Latin America at this point. I think around the world, he's the most popular president at this point. And I've had a lot of phone calls with high net worth individuals that are thinking about relocating there. Like, I will not be surprised if in a decade from now, it is very clear that El Salvador is the Switzerland of this century, so let's see how it plays out. But I think that sort of behavior is what causes other leaders in other countries to emulate it.
Yeah, there's this Gandhi quote where it's like first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you like ultimately win. I feel like Bitcoin kind of had this moment in the beginning. It was ignored, then like people are just like, it's kind of stupid, and then we kind of saw a concerted effort from the U.S. government to somewhat fight it, and many other governments. And it seems like now, at least on the Republican end of the ticket, we're both from the U.S., that there's a lot more adoption and a lot more speaking kindly of Bitcoin. Do you think we're kind of on the slope where we may be winning when at least one of the political parties comes around to more adoption?
I absolutely do, and it feels to me like the pendulum is swinging back in the individual's favor here with Bitcoin and crypto generally. And, don't know when this will go out, but as of today, I was flipping through my Twitter feed and I noticed a couple of major like eyebrow lifting moments in my feed. One, Trump has convinced Diamond, JP Morgan's CEO, to no longer be anti-crypto, which I thought was pretty fascinating. Mark Cuban has come out saying that he expects Bitcoin's price to appreciate substantially and a lot further than a lot of people think it will go. And those are both major flips in the last few months that have occurred. I mean, Mark Cuban was quoted just, I think, even 2-3 years ago saying he'd rather have bananas than so it's pretty interesting to see a guy like that and become an advocate, but it just seems inevitable. Like you can't win by fighting Bitcoin. It's sort of like as like a keto-like move where it sort of like reverses negativity and makes it its strength.
Yeah, and to put it in perspective, I think maybe 2 weeks I'll be press at Bitcoin Nashville, and President Trump is going to be speaking there. So you have one of the presidential candidates speaking at a Bitcoin conference. I really never thought I'd see this day come, and it's quite a change in the past year.
Yeah, it is. It sounds like we'll be there together, witnessing history. I think I will be surprised if Trump comes out with anything less than like a full-throated embrace of Bitcoin. And given where his polls are now after the assassination attempt this last weekend, it just seems fairly inevitable that he's going to wind up in office. And I'm not going to be surprised if Bitcoin's price reacts in a very positive way.
Yeah, I'm needless to say, I'm very excited. So let's wrap up and talk a little bit about some of the upcoming milestones you guys have coming to your platform. Any kind of exciting things you guys have coming?
Well, I'm excited about a rebuild that we've gone through. So, early stage startup, you build your software and then you get to a certain point where you realize, oh my gosh, this thing's, held together with baling wire and bubble gum. Like, I need to go back through and either refactor or rebuild it. So we're almost done with that process in the next month or so completed. So that's really exciting for us, is to have a more scalable foundation to bring features to clients. But on the horizon, some of the things that we plan to do to improve the customer experience, we have a big revamp coming to how we're invoicing, which again doesn't sound particularly sexy, but just creates better transparency and improves the relationship with the clients. We have another mining pool that we want to integrate into our platform, so it's not just a single mining pool that clients have, but they'd have a choice. And then on the horizon, we're looking at financing options so that people can, through a couple of clicks on our platform in a non-custodial way, post their Bitcoin and use that as collateral for a USDT or USDC loan to purchase a mining rig and pay that back with the proceeds from their mining operation. So I think all those things are pretty will be pretty beneficial. Obviously, financing will be the most direct for clients, but I'm excited about the future and where we're going. It's we earned our bear badge to survive in the bear market, and clients keep finding us from all over the world to participate in this ability to acquire Bitcoin at a distance.
Absolutely. Well, very exciting stuff. Where can people go to learn to find more about you guys? Is there a website you want to call out? Any kind of social media?
Of course. Yeah. So sazmining.com, all one word, SAZmining.com. That's our website. And then my DMs are always open on Twitter, at Kent Halliburton. So first initial, last name. Please feel free to reach out, write, ask questions, and we'll be happy to help you get started on your mining journey.
Absolutely. Well, I'll put all the links in the description to everyone, building Web3. Let's get back to it. And thank you so much for coming on here, Kent.